Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Neil
Good
sir.
morning, good
Good
morning, good
morning.
evening. For me, good evening.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am very good. Uh, how is everyone? How are you? How are you feeling?
Very fine, sir. Good to see you all here on this platform.
So nice to see you as
Hello
well.
everyone, I am audible.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
audible,
from known
yes.
hospital. Dr. Chajan Sada will be joined shortly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll be starting at 10:05, Meetu ma'am.
Yeah, right.
So 1 more minute to
One
go.
more minute to go. Right.
Meetu ma'am? Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. I, Mithu Sharda, on behalf of Speaking Cube, welcome you all to the 3-day virtual international conference on mindful consciousness for a sustainable ecosystem, organized in collaboration with MIT World Peace University, Pune. I feel honored to welcome our patron, Dr. Neil Cobrin, founder and director, Academy of Mindfulness, California. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Charan Singh, former RBI Chair Professor of Economics, IIM Bangalore. I also welcome our chief guest, Dr. Rumana N. Siddiqui, Senior Professor and HOD, former HOD, Department of Psychology, Aligarh Muslim University. I also have the privilege to welcome the advisors of Speaking Cube, Dr. Rita Kumar, Senior Professor, MIT University, Noida, Dr. Kanal Chetan Sharda, MD, Internal Medicine, HOD, Critical Care, Noon Hospital, Kota, Professor Dr. Shalini Sharma, Dean, School of Economics and School of Public Policy, MIT World Peace University, Pune. I also welcome our eminent speaker, Dr. Nidhi Verma, Associate Professor, Amity University, Gurugram. I also welcome all the participants to this conference, which is one of its kind. Now, let's start with the opening prayers by Shanta Lama Negiji, visiting faculty, Oxford University. I request you all to be in the prayer position.
Drishti, please increase the volume.
It is not audible.
It is not audible.
No.
Drishti, please check the audio.
May goodness prevails. I pay homage to the Buddha who refuted all the wrong views, who expounded the right way out of this unconditional compassion. I pay homage to Buddha who has destroyed the web-like misconception and expounded deep, vast teachings of embodiment of Buddha and has walked for the welfare of sentient beings. I pay homage to the Buddha, the perfect Buddha. I pay homage to Manjushri, the Lord of wisdom and speech, whose wisdom is radiant like sun. Now, I hand over the forum to Dr. Deepika Chamoli Shahi, founder and director Speaking Cube Mental Health Consulting, to introduce the organization to you. Over to you, Deepika.
Thank you, Meetu ma'am. Am I audible, Drishti?
Yes, ma'am,
Yes,
you're
you are.
audible.
I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Please hold on for a minute. The screen is visible now?
Yes, ma'am, screen is
Yes,
visible.
yes.
Thank you so much. So, a very refreshing good morning to all the dignitaries present here and to all the participants. So a quick go through to our organization, what our organization is and what we do. Speaking Cube Mental Health Consulting was founded by me, that is Dr. Deepika Chamoli Shahi, in the year 2020. And it is an India-based company registered under Uttarakhand government. We have two advisors, Professor Dr. Rita Kumar, Senior Professor, IEPS, Amity University, Noida, and Dr. Colonel Chetan Sharda, HOD Critical Care, Diabetologist, Noon Hospital, Kota. The aim of our organization is to be world-class promotive, preventive, and curative mental health service provider. These are our objectives: to enhance mental health at the global level through preventive and curative services, to spread awareness regarding the significance of mental health through promotive services, to promote academic and research activities through conferences, webinars, seminars, and workshops, to cover mental health services from pregnancy till eternity, and to make mental health services accessible to all through online mode, because not everybody can come to us for healing. We have 4 different verticals. First vertical is online mental health consulting services, wherein we support the mentally ill patients and those who need guidance. Second vertical is educative services, wherein we provide internships to aspiring psychologists and counselors and certifications to aspiring mental health professionals, and conduct conferences, webinars, seminars, and workshops to update the existing knowledge. The third vertical is behavioral training vertical, which is especially for the corporates, and career counseling vertical for school children. These are our clients: MyFab11, which is a fantasy gaming company, Encircle Tech, Himalayan Buddhist Tribal Society, and we do provide voluntary services to Drikyung Kagyu organization, colleges, libraries, and their other organizations. This is the project that we have run through during the pandemic. We have provided voluntary helpline services under the aegis of Speaking Cube from April 2020 till date. This is our second conference. Now coming on to the conferences that we have conducted. Last year, we have conducted one conference on mindfulness. This is our second conference, and the theme of the conference is Mindful Consciousness for a Sustainable Ecosystem from April 2022, that is today, to April 24. And this time, the conference has been organized in collaboration with MIT World Peace University, Pune, under the advisory of Professor Dr. Rita Kumar, IEPS, Amity University, Noida, Dr. Colonel Chetan Sharda, HOD Critical Care, Diabetologist, Noon Hospital, and The third advisor of the conference is Professor Dr. Shalini Sharma, Dean School of Economics and School of Public Policy, MIT World Peace University. The aim of the conference is to address the internal and external issues faced by human beings during the crisis situation, because our internal and external environment are important. Both are important and both needs to be maintained. The objectives for the conference are to promote peace and well-being, to enhance happiness all around the globe, to discuss the sustainable internal environment, to discuss about external ecosystem, to find solutions to the present-day problems related to mental health, and to enhance the environmental pro-social behavior. Theme for the conference is mindful consciousness for a sustainable ecosystem, both internal and external. Sub-themes are consciousness, self-awareness, mindfulness as a cultural heritage, mindfulness in testing times, embracing disruptions through mindful actions, conscious thinking and positive outcome, mindful actions for ecosystem, mindful consciousness and internal ecosystem, mindful conscious parenting, consciousness in Vedic philosophy, consciousness in Buddhist philosophy, peace and well-being and happiness. This time we have VFAQ as a publication partner, and certificate of appreciation will be provided to the best 3 presenters. Thank you so much. So this is all what we do. Neetu ma'am,
Yeah.
over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Deepika ma'am. Thank you so much. So let's begin our first day of the conference by inviting Dr. Rita Kumar to share her thoughts on the significance of peaceful inner ecosystem. Over to you, Rita ma'am.
Thank you so much, Neetu ma'am, to invite me and to give me opportunity. Good morning to all of you, all the dignitaries present here and all the participants. Very warm good morning to everyone. The topic which I have been given, or you can say I'm talking about, is peaceful inner ecosystem. Whenever we talk about ecosystem, usually we think about the ecosystem is about the external world of the human being, where we are living. Means, whenever I was talking about the conference, then people were thinking, then when we are talking about the ecosystem, it is somewhere environmental conferences, not the psychology related conference. So it is very important to understand that the ecosystem when we are talking about, yes, it is the habitat of the human being where human is living and surviving. And our environment, our cohabitants, whether the animals, plants, and all are creating our ecosystem. But when I contemplated on this topic, then I realized, and I could understand also it in a better manner, that what human being is, what we are actually 3 in 1. As I always say, we are 3 in 1. Means we are body, mind, and soul. And these 3 together creates an ecosystem inside us. So first of all, if we talk about body has trillions of cells. We are not a unicellular organism, but we are multicellular organism. And every cell is a living entity in our body. It has its own mind. It has its own functioning and performing different functions as per their roles have been assigned to them. Along with this, our body is the home for so many microorganisms living inside our body and living on our body. So means our body is a universe for so many microorganisms. They are inside us. And see, there was a quote I was reading that if ecosystem collapse, economy collapse. So means if external ecosystem will collapse, our economy will collapse. But when our inner ecosystem will be disturbed, will not be at peace, our health will be destroyed. Whether it's a physical health or it's a mental health or maybe our spiritual health as well. Though the spirituality is bigger and broader and stronger than anything, destruction of the spirituality is not possible. So, but if our minds are so much disturbed, we will not be able to focus on the spiritual aspects of our being. Then we can say that the spirituality will be disturbed. The main thing here is to understand the first layer of our being is our body, our human body in which we are residing. If we are not maintaining the ecosystem of this body, the microorganisms which are living here, which are making their homes in our body, on our body, and they are contributing in our survival. So if they are not in harmony, they are not in peace, then our whole system will collapse. And that is why we are seeing so many diseases are happening. Then within the body, there is a mind between the soul and the body. And this mind is playing a most significant role. If we talk about sustainable ecosystem, we talk about sustainable development, then as a psychologist, as a human being, I found that this mind plays the most significant role. Every behavior, every reaction of the people, what they are doing, what they are performing, depends on their thoughts, on their beliefs. And usually what is happening is that people in the modern time, being very logical, they are trying to seek their inner peace into the external facilities, luxuries, and external developments and comforts they are seeking their inner peace, because mind plays this role of a logics. But this mind, when we just go deeper inside us through mindfulness, through meditation, then we find that we are being connected to our third partner, or original, not the partner, but I say original self, or the wider self, that is soul. When we are connected to that original self, then we start realizing that ecosystem which is inside us, that needs to be at a balance, at a peaceful state. To create this peaceful world means to create the peaceful system of the human life wherever we are living. No government can work for it, no leaders can work for it, but human beings, their minds, their inner ecosystem, which is at the peaceful state, will be able to create the peaceful society and will be able to create a sustainable developing society, so that human existence will be on this earth for a longer period of time. And very interestingly, I would like to quote here also that everybody would have listened about yoga. What is yoga? Patanjali Yoga Sutra has given us this yoga, and Patanjali has talked about Ashtanga Yoga, means 8 limbs of yoga. These 8 limbs are 8, you can say 8 classification or 8 bifurcation, but they are the 8 limbs. Means they are 8 parts of ourselves. If we are working on these 8 parts or 8 limbs, and we create a balance in them, then only we will be able to create a peaceful inner ecosystem. So in this, what is important is our diet. What do we eat? Because it is said, "Jaisa khai ann vaisa hoye man." So means what we eat. We are eating non-vegetarian or vegetarian, it's not a matter, but if we are eating anything, then that element which we are eating, that will become the part of our being, because we will consume it and it will go to our body and cell, and that will make us as that component is. before eating, think what we are eating. Another thing is important, that what we are thinking. Emotions, he had talked many times. So emotions are important and metacognition is important. Think what to think. Is being angry, is having jealousy, is having the negative emotions like rage, is beneficial to me, or just I'm having this to satisfy my ego? Then if they are beneficial to me and to others, then I will be able to create a peaceful system inside me and outside. But what happens, we keep on carrying those negative emotions in our mind, unnecessarily creating imbalance in ourselves. When being angry is not making me happy and peaceful, then what is the use of being angry? So means it is on us how we want to create our inner ecosystem. That is very important. And I would request all the psychologists present here, never feel that ecosystem is environmentalist talk. Ecosystem is very important for every psychologist. That is what we are working, actually, we are working on inner ecosystem. And we need to create a balance and a peace inside us by creating peace in our every thought. And it is not theoretical, which I am saying, it is a practical aspect of the life. We can create this being mindful about our all 8 limbs which we are. Because yoga is not just some postures. Yoga means totality of all 8 limbs. Maybe we will be discussing this in detail, 8 limbs, because today the time is limited. Tomorrow in the workshop, we will be discussing it in detail so that we can learn how to create that peaceful ecosystem inside us. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you. Neetu ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really nice. Thank you. Dr. Acharya Mahesh Anandji from Patanjali is in deep sadhana since Navaratras, as per the telecommunication yesterday. So he is unable to join us. Next, I welcome our next Dr. Neil Cobrin, sir, to share his thoughts. Over to you, Neil, sir.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. I will actually follow up on your lovely talk. But I'd like everyone first to just settle yourselves for a moment and just take a very deep cleansing breath. Breathing in through the nose. Out from the mouth. Just let your body settle. Just allow yourself to be calm. Open up the channels of receptivity. So, Dr. Kumar, what I loved about what you've said about an ecosystem, we are mind, we are body, and we are spirit. And what I'd like to talk about today is the relationship between mindfulness and spirit and mental health in particular. I have worked for many, many decades now with people who have struggled in various ways, have suffered in various ways, and trying, as did the Buddha, to understand the nature of suffering and how to relieve it. I've come to really think about the human condition. And I think what's interesting from my perspective and I think that perspective is a really important element to help the human condition, is if we take a look at birth, we come into this world with two major ingredients. One is that every living being, every living thing on this planet has a survival instinct. It's really quite powerful when you think about that part of our nature is to survive. And yet the human condition is tasked with a tremendous challenge that other animals in our kingdom are not. And that is, despite our survival instinct, we have no method whatsoever of being capable of surviving. We are defenseless. We are vulnerable. We are virtually incapable at birth to survive. So think about this dilemma that this creates, right? I'll talk a little bit later on, if I get a chance, to talk about life as a contradiction. But on one end, we have an imperative, if you will, to survive. On the other end, we have virtually no means to do that. Now contrast that, and I've said this many times, but for me it's very powerful, with, for example, the sea turtle. The sea turtle also has an imperative to survive. But the difference between the sea turtle and the human animal is that it is fully capable, 100% capable of survival. I went to a hatching, it's called a turtle hatching, where I watched these tiny little creatures burrow their way up through a mound of dirt. And somehow they knew when it was time to break through the egg. It knew how to burrow up through the mound. It knew how to turn itself towards the sea, and it knew how to walk into the sea and survive. It had every ability to survive. The only danger were predators, but the capability within this organism was 100%. We are at 0%. So why do I talk about this? Because it's a recipe for what I believe is the greatest challenge of the human condition, and that is anxiety. We find ourselves in a completely dependent situation. We are dependent on our caretakers to care for us because we're not capable. So it sets up this dynamic where it's significant for us to feel a sense of value, that we are so dependent on the outside world to care for us and validate us, that anything that is less than completely rewarding leaves us feeling insecure. And I believe that much of the emotional struggles that we experience in life have to do with this basic sense of insecurity. Okay, so let me shift a moment. I set a premise here. Now, how does one deal with insecurity? How do we navigate through life in a way that allows us not to be at the impact of our anxiety and our insecurity? And I think this is where spirituality and mindfulness really allows us to have a different experience. You know, there's a famous saying, one of which that I can't take credit for, which is that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Part of what I try to help people, guide people to understand, is that if you embrace the fact that we are simply spirit, that we have always been, we are pure energy. We've always been spirit. We will always be spirit. It sets up a contrast that allows us to experience life differently. It's a figure ground relationship. It's understanding that we are renting this body. Someone said to me just recently, I love this, had a conversation and they said, well, so God created the earth. God created the universe. And God looked around and thought, wow, what a magnificent place I've built. It's so beautiful. You know, I should bring some people in. I should bring some living beings in to enjoy this. You know, I mean, for it to just sit vacant and not really allow it to have the full capacity of enjoyment. So, if you will, God creates living beings, human beings, animals, but it's simply a vacation. It's a time to spend in the playground, you know, and then it's time to leave the playground so someone else can come and use the playground. You know, there's a very famous book, Lord of the Rings. Tolkien created this series. And in it, one of the peoples are elves. And elves are tasked with immortality. Tasked with immortality. What does that mean? That means that they endure life while everything around them goes through a process of living and dying, living and dying, living and dying. And you would, so what I'm getting at is when we change our perspective about life, it can really allow us to have a different experience in life. If you think about what it is to be a screenwriter is someone who develops a story, writes in the characters, and every character and every scene is intended to create an emotional response. If you see your own life as you being the screenwriter and you writing everything into your life that ever befalls you, that ever impacts you, and you see it as a way of giving you an opportunity to learn and to grow, it changes your relationship to what's happening. There's a wonderful poem, a Rumi poem. It's called The Guest House. I'd like to read it. It says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them all at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. What are we doing here? Why are we here? What is the nature of existence? You know, I think each of us need to ask ourselves that question. You know, different religions have different answers. There are religions in the world that believe that life is simply to be endured. It's the afterlife where you have joy. I don't particularly ascribe to that. I believe life is an opportunity for conscious evolution. Our consciousness has an opportunity through our life to be raised, to be opened, to embrace the wider sphere of the universe. And each time something occurs in our life, it gives us an opportunity to really change the way we experience it. You know, most of us move through life as if we're wearing a jacket that we don't know we can take off. We kind of think that this jacket is like our skin, you know? And we don't realize that we encumber ourselves. We create the suffering based on how we relate to it. Stress, for example, is nothing more, not to diminish its impact, but it's nothing more than the way we relate to something. You know, if two children are playing a sport and one of them are aware that there's someone in the stands that might be able to advance their career and the other one is not, it's the same game they're playing. But that awareness that that one has, it's going to change the nature of how they play. The stress that they feel will impact them. So I think the basic part that I'm trying to get to is that we have to move through life constantly quieting ourselves, calming ourselves, you know, realizing that, as Dr. Kumar said, it's not about the external impacts, it's about the internal environment, the internal ecosystem. Anxiety, we think anxiety is created from external. The reality is that if you have anxiety within, it attaches itself to external events. So how does mindfulness play a role? Well, let's talk about what it means to be mindful. There are various definitions, but really mindfulness is about awareness. You know, the Buddha basically said there are two pillars that are essential to human evolution. One is wisdom, and the other is compassion. And the joining of these two can allow us to be whole. And mindfulness is an awareness, it's a focus. It is the acceptance that this very moment that we're all experiencing right now is the only moment we have. Everything else is speculation. Your memories are speculation. What's going to happen in the future is speculation. What creates often emotional distress is the inability to stay focused and engaged in the moment. And the other thing that creates a great deal of emotional distress is how self-absorbed we are. Each of us. You know, when you talk about depression is a very self-absorbed state. When you talk about anxiety, it's a very self-absorbed state. You know, we're constantly ruminating and thinking about the negativity that's in our minds. Because where are we focused? The mind attends to what the mind attends to. What does that mean? Whatever you put in front of the mind, that's what it's going to see. And if it sees the negative thoughts that go on over and over and over again, that's the experience you have. If it sees beauty in the trees and nature and the sky and the oceans, that's the experience that you'll have. So anxiety is this constant view and evaluation of ourselves. It's fear-ridden. Depression is a view where we're focused on ourselves and all the negative feelings that we have. And that second pillar of compassion, if we turn our focus outwardly, to our fellow living beings, if we can be empathetic to the struggle of human nature with open-heartedness, it changes the way we have an experience. You go into a card shop in America on a holiday, and all the cards say, I love you, I love you, I love you. You buy a card, you send it to the person you love, and oh, I'm so happy now. Got a card, somebody loves me. But the reality, it's not about that. In reality, it's about having an opportunity to have someone, some living thing that we can give our life, our love to. It's the experience of being open-hearted that's healing. That's what creates wholesomeness within us. Greed and avarice and jealousy, all those negative emotions. I love this saying, anger is like holding a hot coal in your hand, prepared to throw it. It's great. All of these negative emotions that we have, who's it affecting? It's affecting us, right? So we have to be able to change that. And when we realize that we're one, we're all one with spirit. We all have Buddha nature. It's helpful. Thomas Merton wrote, who's a very famous monk. Then it was as if I suddenly saw the secret beauty of their hearts, the depths of their hearts, where neither sin nor desire nor self-knowledge can reach, the core of their reality, the person that each one is in the eyes of the divine. If only they could all see themselves as they really are. If only we could see each other that way all of the time, there'd be no more war, there'd be no more hatred, no more cruelty, no more greed. I suppose the big problem would be that we'd all fall down and worship each other. Namaste, right? Namaste. The divine in me sees the divine in you. Absolutely. Namaste. So, I can go on and on. There's so many ways in which I view these things. But I think the one thing I will say is that to the degree that we can be grateful, absolutely grateful for the gift that we've been given to play in this miraculous field that's been developed for us. To the degree we could be grateful for the little things in life, to the degree that we understand that every one of us in this conference, every one of us on this planet, we've all won the lottery. They did a scientific evaluation not too many years ago, because they didn't have the technology to determine what the odds are of creating human life. And the odds were far greater than winning the lottery. And here we are. So some of this is about changing your attitude, changing the way you view your life, recognizing that this is an opportunity for us to grow and expand our wisdom and our thinking. Buddha was all about, if you will, the delusion of life. I will leave you with one thing that I've said so often of late. You do not obtain worth. you do not obtain worth. Worth is innate. O nobly born, you of glorious origins, remember your true radiant self. If you can really embrace the worth that you are, you will have grace in your life. If you chase what you think is going to create worth, it generally leads to more suffering. So go with grace. Namaste. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share my thoughts and my feelings with you. So I'm not hearing you.
Me too, ma'am, please.
Okay, sorry. So I really thank you, Dr. Neil Cobran, for being here. It was such a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much. Now I welcome Dr. Colonel Chetan Sharda, Advisor Speaking Cube, HOD Critical Care, Noon Hospital, to speak about the state of emotional equilibrium. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
You are.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for the invitation and asking me to speak about emotional equilibrium. I don't know why I was chosen as the person to speak about emotional equilibrium. Probably because I belong to the field of medicine and I live through people's emotions, but their emotions do affect us physicians, our profession. Like all of the people who are today present, I'm very sure that they are in the kind of profession that they are involved. They are not just involved with their own emotions. They are also very well entrenched in the emotions of others. And this definitely affects us. But what is the need to talk about it? That's the most important question. So why emotional equilibrium? The definition of emotion is very interesting. If we go through the definition of emotion, emotion is defined as a strong feeling which is more intuitive than it is based on any facts or logic. So by definition itself, it is a strong emotion, a strong feeling. So the word strong itself suggests that it has its repercussions, like if I use the analogy of tsunami. So all emotions that swell inside you, that well up inside you, have that kind of repercussions. Now, they could all be positive or negative. Sorry, can I just interrupt? I just wish to know how much time do I have when I have to speak this? 20 minutes? Would that be all right? Is it 20 minutes?
Yes, sir. 20, 25 minutes,
20
yes.
minutes. Okay, 20 minutes. So using 20 to 25 minutes to describe emotions. Emotions are a topic by itself, and equilibrium is a vast topic, which, as far as I'm concerned, takes a lifetime to talk about and a lifetime to understand. But anyway, we will try, and I will try and project whatever in my observation and experience I have had about emotions and equilibrium together. So as I suggested, that emotions are like tsunamis, if that is the analogy which is appropriate. We all have that experience. Whether they are positive or negative, it's immaterial. But the crux, the end point, all emotional upheavals. Emotions are upheavals. They are like, if we use the analogy, manthan. They are like manthan. So here we are talking about upheavals and trying to bring about an equilibrium in these upheavals. The end result in anything, as far as I'm concerned, is that emotions drain you. They leave you wanting. They leave you with a lot of questions. So emotions by themselves need to be either curtailed. So one can, argue that emotions need to be curtailed. Emotions need to be, but if we are emotionless, are we more human than we are if we are with a lot of emotions? Those questions do become then very important, because being human is very important. So one can argue that having emotions is being human, but being a greater human, I believe, is when you can curtail those emotions and bring about a certain amount of equilibrium. For lack of a better word, equilibrium is the equivalent of equilibrium in our culture. Again, I am so sorry to all the others who belong to different cultures and different backgrounds. I would be taking up a lot of samples from my own upbringing, and for that I'm very sorry. But what I have to say, I would use the word for equilibrium, a samanvaya. A samanvaya is like an equal word to equilibrium. Not really, but yes, a samanvaya. So we are talking about an equilibrium. Now the important part is, now that we have defined the need for understanding it, because it's an upheaval, emotions play a very important part in our lives. Now, do emotions have positive impact? That's the second question that I want to say. If they have a positive impact, do we really need to have an equilibrium secondary to it? Yes. Emotions have both, as I suggested, have both positive as well as a negative impact. And, let's get on to the examples. The positive impact examples, I will take two very important and very interesting examples by themselves. The first example is that of Maharshi Ramana. You see, if you have seen his picture, you have seen a certain emotion on his face, wherein he is in a state of an equilibrium. That state of an equilibrium is very much evident on the face of Maharshi Ramana. And then we talk about the smile of Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is a very celebrated picture. I feel that what really attracts people is not just a smile, but it is the emotion in that smile which is well equilibrated. It is that she is in a state of equilibrium, and that smile stems from that state of equilibrium. So it is that kind of emotion which, it attracts us towards her. So here are two very varied examples from different culture, wherein people are definitely, they are a positive emotion, but that positivity stems from being in a state of equilibrium. So it is better to be human, hence emotional, but in a state of equilibrium. This is what I conclude from my observation as well as in my experience. Again, there are studies which would suggest that if you are in a state of equilibrium, your mind, your productivity becomes better. So we can always argue that in a state of emotional equilibrium, the individual is definitely more happy. A happy person is more productive and towards humanity and is more human. So we would argue that emotional equilibrium is definitely the end point of it all. But even if we leave out emotion from it, equilibrium is far more important than anything else. We are all professionals. We are all human beings. We have a certain way of living. We have certain cultures. We have certain tasks to perform, or we all live our mundane lives. But in our mundane lives, we need to understand the importance of equilibrium, not just in emotions, but in everything that we do. Now let's get on to the brass tacks of it. The brass tacks suggests that we live our life. I would now let chemistry do the work. My chemistry says there is a very important, as a physician, a very important example is that we have in our daily day-to-day routine as a physician, we have a very important equation. And that equation says H plus HCO3 minus is equal to H2CO3. Now we are all science students. We have good background of science. Pardon me for all those who don't have a background in science. This is hydrogen ions which are mixing with the bicarbonates which make up the carbonic acid. So the hydrogen is H plus, HCO3 is bicarbonate ions, which we suggest that it forms carbonic acid. Now this equation in a state of equilibrium, when it is written, it has a direction towards carbonic acid and it has a direction towards bicarbonates and H plus ions. Now in this equation, remember that if we add a lot of H plus, the equation shifts towards the right. Add a lot of bicarbonates, the equation shifts towards right. There is no equilibrium. The moment you add carbonic and probably a catalyst, then the equation shifts towards left. There is an equation, every chemical equation has a propensity to either go towards right or go towards left, but it tries to achieve a state of equilibrium. Having said that, and I do not wish to trouble you more with more of chemistry, let's get on to the equilibrium of emotions. How do we achieve it? The question is just that. Question is just that. And I have just around another 5 minutes to suggest my the framework in which I think it is best coming to you. I call it the framework of desire and economy. Every profession, every life, there are two very important ingredients of everybody's life, and that is desire and emotion. Now, if we say that there is an equation wherein desire is in equilibrium with emotion, in this framework, we can, if I use the term artha and kama, kama being the desire and artha being the economics of it, economy. So desire and economy would be a better word than emotions. Herein, emotions comes between the gambit of economy. Now, when we say desires, if we have, now I'm coming to, when the desires are more, we are moving towards an economics of it or the artha, then there is a desired economy coming up. If there is an economy is more, then it goes back to the left and you have economy of desires is required to achieve a certain amount of equilibrium. So now we have two words more from desires and economy. We have two more words coming up, and that is economy of desires and desired economy. These are the two, when in equilibrium, gives you a certain state of, that state of equilibrium provides us a very stable platform for everything, including emotions. Now, how that works, I would, there are no examples, but then there are two other ingredients in it. The two other ingredients are, there, as far as I'm concerned, are the catalysts. Now, what is a catalyst? As per chemistry, catalyst is something that shifts the equation towards the equilibrium towards one side or the other side. Those are called catalysts. And what is the most important catalyst in human being life? Those are two. Well, very august and very learned people have spoken before me, and they have all spoken about human beings having certain, layers, a body layer, a spiritual layer, and we have all those. Mind, body, and soul. We can only work in the framework of these three, actually. I absolutely agree. Now, the two catalysts that I would like to add on are the dharma. I use dharma as duty rather than a religious connotation to it. There is no religious connotation to it. And the other is the achieving the end result. That is a catalyst. So whatever you want, desires, you cannot fulfill it unless and until there is a catalyst. That I call moksha, because whenever your desires are fulfilled, it is a kind of moksha. It's a kind of a nirvana. You feel elated, you feel free, you feel more happy. So moksha is any such event that happens in your life. It may not be the ultimate one, but then it is somehow that. That equilibrium, importantly, has to be achieved. So we have these four words: desire, economy, duty, and the objective. So they can be called this framework is artha, kama, moksha, dharma. So anything and everything comes between the gambit of these four words, or these four words in equivalent are desire, economy, duty, and objective. Positive and negative is immaterial at this stage. We can always say that an equilibrium has to be in not just exclusive. Equilibrium ultimately has many layers, and that equilibrium has to be all inclusive, all pervading. All pervading means whatever is inside has to be outside. So it is not just the internal milieu, it has to be the external environment also that is to be included in these four words so as to achieve the ultimate equilibrium. Here we can talk about emotions within the framework of whatever I have said. Okay, now let's talk about the equilibrium of emotion. Now, emotions can only be equilibrated if we have a certain amount of equilibrium between these four. That's as said and as simple as I have said. There is nothing more to it. That has been my observation and my experience. Whatever may come out, you can take out one, you will see that the equilibrium will never be achieved. You can take out one of these four, and then the equilibrium never will be achieved. And the human life will always be left wanting at the end. That is how it will be. So my suggestion is, my take on this is, that if you wish to be in a state, you must try to be in a state of equilibrium. That's number one. That is the take-home message. So the take-home message is, from my side, a state of equilibrium. For that, you have to learn how to be in a state of equilibrium. It is not as if it can be, somebody can gift it to you. It has to be always be at the back of your mind. You always try to be in a state of equilibrium. Let's say somebody just walks into your clinic and he has something to say other than what you feel is right. So you cannot be that brings about a disequilibrium. So that disequilibrium has to be brought about to a state of equilibrium, and that you have to just learn. You have to just learn how to do it. So there is no one mantra that will do it. So your life is all about achieving that state of equilibrium. Knowingly, unknowingly, consciously, unconsciously, you're trying to do the same thing. Everybody is trying to do the same thing. I just say, be mindful of it when you're doing it. Be mindful of the fact that, yes, take that sankalpa that I want to, this person has said something. So the sankalpa can be a small one at onset, and subsequently the big one. So every small step that you take every day will ultimately, you will gain a certain state of equilibrium and the life will flow smoothly. Whether it is emotional or not, that's a very separate issue. But emotions going too extreme to the right, too extreme to the left, well, they will leave you wanting about what you really want in life. So that is my message. And I am still learning. And remember that when you have achieved a certain state of equilibrium, that's just the start of your journey. Because equilibrium will have a second level of equilibrium, the third level of equilibrium. And there are multitude of examples that I can give, wherein even the last and the last and then the last, and then you find that they're still wanting. There are so many wonderful examples of this, but at least for now, we can make a start with what we have. And we have these 4 ingredients with us. And these 4 ingredients, you need to just think about it. Every one of us need to think about it. Those 4 ingredients, the desire, economy, the desired economy and the economy of desires, the catalysts, which are your duty rather than religion. Religion is not imperfect to say to the core, because there are many imperfections, or they may not be properly addressed. So anyway, and the last catalyst is of course the objective. If we can achieve a certain amount of equilibrium, life would be happy, and that is what we want. An emotional equilibrium is basically certain amount of joy, like at everybody of you, to put it very simply, would be smiling like Mona Lisa. So let's all have that Mona Lisa smile on our faces all the time. Thank you so much. I hope I put across a certain amount of point, and that is basically a thought for everybody to munch upon. And probably you may not agree with me, but then that is what has been my observation of life up till now. Maybe I will change, but then everybody of us needs to change. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chetan. It's always so nice and a pleasure listening to you. Now, I invite Professor Dr. Abha Singh, Director, Center of Emotional Intelligence, IILM University, for her words of wisdom. Dr. Abha.
Namaste from Melbourne. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. So I'm very happy to be here today on this very important conference. And I congratulate Dr. Deepika and Speaking Cube to hold this very pertinent, critical, and I think need of an hour. So I think a lot has been said, but I would like to give my view on mindful consciousness for sustainable ecosystem. I understand that whether we are sustainable, I have a question for all of you. What I think present speaker was, a learned doctor was telling us on emotions. And before that, I was hearing Professor Neil that we all are spiritual beings striving to be a human being. and Dr. Kumar on inner ecosystem. I really appreciate and acknowledge all these points are very scientific. You know. But what we will do with these points? I raise a question in all of your minds, all learned minds, insightful minds, spiritual beings, that whether we are sustainable in ourselves, forget about sustainable ecosystem right now. That's where the problem lies. You know? Doctor was telling us, medical practitioner, I appreciate your every point. As a psychologist, I deal with emotions. I understand that how important it is to make humans sustainable if they understand the importance and the role of emotions in their life. Why they're hijacked by emotions every time. You know? The equilibrium you're talking about, you know. That's where I'm trying to focus everybody's attention, that if you want to be sustainable, one thing on this earth we can control is our emotions. As a psychologist, this is my learning. And we become vulnerable on this aspect, and then we are neither sustainable for ourselves, nor we are sustainable for our environment. So first we need to learn how to inculcate sustainable lifestyles. Sustainable lifestyles, sustainable lifestyles, mindsets. You know, that's very important. We are aware of SDG goals, Sustainable Developmental Goals, and goal 3 is health and well-being. What we as psychologists and doctors are doing, have we arrived at certain goals and mindsets on sustainable lifestyles? That's very important. We need to have sustainable lifestyles, and in Indian system, let me tell you, we have yoga, meditation, which talks about sustainable lifestyles. We are promoting, myself as a psychologist, I'm promoting this as a mental health technique, you know, to help in to create more positivity in life and spread positive mental health and become sustainable for self and create sustainable ecosystem. And the multipliers are many when you have this kind of mindset, because it has a multiplier effect on the environment. So simple logic, which I would like to present, and a scientific point, that if we do every day 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes meditation, you are creating sustainable ecosystem. This you can test and experiment it. You can challenge me on this, reach me on what I have said. You know, time has come, my dear friends and colleagues, that we need to adapt sustainable lifestyles. And one is meditation. If you do meditation daily, you are creating a positive ecosystem in your inner environment, as Dr. Rita said, and in the external environment where you are sitting right now, and that will have an effect on others as well, positive effects on others as well. This is one way to become sustainable for self. Second point, if our habits and practices, we are not able to observe, because your topic, you are saying as a topic, Deepika, mindful consciousness. Are we mindful? If I am talking right now to you all, am I mindful? Yes, I am mindful. Deepika had given me what I was trying to catch up with the time and zone of different country. I was thinking it will be difficult, Dr. Deepika, but she knows my heart, and I think mind lies in this mindful consciousness, and she caught me, you know, that no, ma'am, it can be done, you know. So what I'm trying to say, that sustainable ecosystem catches so fast in a positivity, same as it has a I think, double, triple effect in negativity. What we have in positivity, the speed, it has more speed in negativity. That's how what has happened to Earth. We all know it, you know. So how do we catch up with that speed of negativity and destruction which is taking place with the sustainable lifestyles and human lifestyles which we are having with the help of modernization, technology, where we are going? We have to pause. We have to be mindful what we are doing, what we are practicing, what are our habits and our personality. And more so, we are talking of sustainable ecosystem, entrepreneurs, business leaders, political leaders. We have to see that whether we are nurturing selfish thoughts to gain business profits, or we are having unselfish thought. That's where sustainability lies. I think that's one Amazon example. I'm not here to say against any company, but one example I'd like to present before you, that we have to understand if there is a business, because since this is for entrepreneurship as well, that's why I'm making a point that if we are doing business, how socially useful it is. I know everybody wants profit, but we all have read economics in schools. We all know business is for society upliftment, you know. The entrepreneurs, they uplift society, where we are moving right now. Now companies are thinking how to dump the waste which they have created through their business. So they are thinking of creating business on the dump and I think the garbage which we have collected now. Just imagine. Now they are having a worst nightmare on this, thinking on this, how to create a plan so that the waste can be taken in the context of profit and it doesn't harm the environment. First place, why do we have so much of waste then? Company should have pre-planned first, you know. I'm not naming any company. This is one example which I read. And when I was in one conference, a business conference, I heard one company doing this, you know. And now they are thinking of how to dump this waste so that it doesn't affect the environment. So that's where, if I'm a business leader or a leader, I need to think whatever business I am creating, developing, how far it is affecting human life in all respects, in holistic way, you know, not only profits. So human life is very precious. We all know it, you know. So this is very important, that we need to be mindful, whatever we are doing, whether our business, our activity, our profession, we should be mindful. And mindfully, we should be conscious for right and wrong and righteous behavior, inculcate the lifestyles, inculcate whatever is going to produce positive effect on self, society, nation, and world. Today, we are all coping post-pandemic, you know, we all know it. Why we are coping? Because there are a lot of health hazards, you know. Everybody is struggling on that fearful mindset that maybe I should not catch that infection. Why? Because the kind of environment we have created, the vulnerable environment we have created, now we are fearful of that, you know. So we have to understand that whatever small act we do in our daily routine, it affects at individual level, family level, social level, and national level and international level. So this is a very conscious call. As a responsible person, leader, we need to be mindful consciousness to be sustained so that our economy, environment is sustainable for human growth and development. So these are two valid points which I wanted to share in the inaugural session. And I understand that further we go in the conference deliberation, we'll have more good points to learn from learned professionals and learned speakers. And to end my talk, emotions I will end with this, that emotion is, I explain it as E is energy in motion, EMOTION. E is energy in motion. So always be kind to that energy, to yourself first. Whatever thought you have in your mind, the kind of feeling you inculcate and kind of behavior you show. So this energy in motion needs to be taken care of for sustainable inner ecosystem and sustainable external ecosystem. If we do this much, I think we'll add great value to our ecosystem. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Abha, for your wonderful approach to sustainability. Thank you so much. Next, I invite Professor Dr. Shalini Sharma, advisor for the conference in Speaking Cube, Dean School of Economics and School of Public Policy, MIT World Peace University, Pune, to speak about mindful economic management and happiness. Over to you, Dr. Shalini.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be on this platform. It's such a required platform for all of us to actually think. Such an eminent place where we all need to be and discussing so many things. I'm highly grateful to the organizers for organizing such a pertinent conference on such an important theme, which is actually required by the whole universe as of now. My special pranam to our madam, Abha ma'am. Pranam, कैसे हैं आप? बहुत अच्छा लगा आपको इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे देख के. And Ritu ma'am, how are you? I will start with a quote: mindfulness as a source of happiness. Mindfulness, along with focus and agility, promotes kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, peace of mind, wisdom, and contentment, which are the most important ingredient for human happiness and progress. Welfare and well-being have traditionally been gauged by using income and employment statistics, life expectancy, and other objective measures. But these measures give an incomplete view. The economics of happiness, which is based on people's reports of how their lives are going, provides a complementary yet radical approach to studying human well-being. Typically, subjective well-being measures include positive and negative human feelings. Example, momentary experience of happiness or stress, life evaluations, life satisfaction, feelings of having a life purpose. Both businesses and policymakers now increasingly make decisions and craft policies based on such measures. And we do not have to go long back to see anything. The corona itself has taught us the value and the purpose of life. It is true that to be happy, we do need a basic and comfortable standard of living. I will not divert from that very basic thought. But this is where emerges mindful economic management. We need to manage our resources in such a way that we get the maximum happiness. If I was in pure economics, I would have said maximization of utility. But here, I'm on purpose using the word happiness. Now, my well-being and happiness will primarily depend upon my psychological well-being, health, education, time use, that is the work-life balance, cultural diversity and resilience, good governance, community, ecological diversity, and my living standards. Here comes the work of the policy makers to provide the basic, equal, good, well-being package to all without any discrimination. And in doing so, uphold the respect for humanity, distinctiveness, and diversity. We as individuals also have to respect the same. If we do not respect the same, again the problems would come in. We must give space to all the people we are living with in the community. In fact, space is so important. I even tell my children that we need to give space to each other. If we are not giving that, we are not being happy. Being happy and satisfied with life is something that many people strive for, either consciously or unconsciously. In addition, subjective well-being is important as it credibly predicts productivity, creativity, income, and job-related behaviors such as efforts and quits. Now, the moment the people are happy, they will be actually giving in more productivity. They'll be much more productive. They'll be much more creative. Therefore, people's account of how they are doing can provide important nuance and information that standard progress indicators or indicators of work quality measures may miss. For example, an economist, looking at salary and compensation alone, may not understand why workers decide to quit their job. Why is it happening? And just recently, I was reading a very famous tennis player. She quit her job, being a tennis player. She said, I don't want to play any longer. My work-life balance is not maintained. So when job satisfaction or perceptions of doing meaningful work are added to the picture, job changes and quits may indeed appear inevitable. This is mindful economic management, where there is a mental satisfaction of work and achievement, which ultimately leads to productivity. And the cycle continues and leads to high GDP, heading to a better quality of life for everyone, low income inequality, and social distress. The circle comes to a full with contentment and happiness. Let me share an incident and end with it. Just recently, I was at Shani Singapore temple near Nasik, Pune. There no house in the village has doors, only door frames. Despite this, no theft has been reported in the village, and the people live in peace, happiness, and harmony. Not far from India, let's just look to our neighbor, Bhutan. Bhutan does not have a measure of GDP. It measures gross national happiness. This is what I would coin as mindful economic management. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shalini. It was really nice, and we have learned that we need to give space to each other. Thank you. Next on the panel, I invite Professor Dr. Nidhi Verma, Associate Professor, Amity University, Gurugram, to share her thoughts on mindful consciousness in Shri Bhagavad Gita. Dr. Nidhi.
Very good morning. Am I audible?
Good morning. You are audible, ma'am. You are audible.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meetu. And I'm very thankful to all the senior members here, Dr. Abha ma'am, Professor Abha ma'am, Professor Rita ma'am, and Shalini ma'am, and director of the Speaking Cube. So I'm very thankful that we all have gathered here to discuss about mindfulness, a very pertinent topic. So, okay. So the topic which I'm going to talk about, mindful consciousness in Bhagavad Gita. So we all know, we all are aware about Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita needs no introduction. We all know that it is a holy Hindu scripture and it is equally well respected and well accepted both in Eastern and Western cultures. Coming back to mindfulness, basically, I will try to tell how mindfulness is already incorporated in the scripture, in the verses of Bhagavad Gita. This is all what I'll be trying. So coming back to mindfulness, it is basically consciousness where one is non-judgmental, where one is open-minded and present-centered. And the concept of mindfulness, it is quite old. Since ages, it has been incorporated in different scriptures, be it as a scripture, Buddhist scripture like Dhyana Sutra, Hindu scriptures like Upanishads, like Patanjali Yoga Sutra, as well as in Bhagavad Gita. So basically, all the scriptures, they have already incorporated mindfulness. Their techniques can be different. Their way of practicing mindfulness may be different, but all the scriptures, they are focusing on one thing, that is mindful, to be mindful, to be able to control the mind. Okay. In one of the chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that is chapter number 6, this is the interpretation which I am telling, that it has been said that if we are able to conquer the mind, then the mind can be the greatest friend of ours. And if we are unable to control or conquer the mind, or if we fail to conquer the mind, then mind can be the greatest enemy also. Okay. So here, let's come back to now Bhagavad Gita. We all know that Bhagavad Gita is basically the discourse between Lord Krishna to Arjuna in the battlefield of Mahabharata in Kurukshetra. So the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna Vishad. What is Arjuna Vishad? Arjuna Vishad means Arjuna depression. When Arjuna was in the state of great turmoil, was in the state of anxiety, and was in the state of lot of stress. So we can very well, understand that this Bhagavad Gita is a practical application. We can place ourselves, we can keep ourselves on the place of Arjuna. Like Arjuna faced so many, stressors and conflict during the time of war, because he had to, fight with the own family members. It was a great turmoil, state of, anxiety. And so, this Bhagavad Gita is, we all can, place that like Arjuna, we all faces similar kind of conflicts, stresses in all our daily day-to-day life. So the preachings of Lord Krishna helped Arjuna to be in the state of mindful and to perform the karma. So if we are able to keep ourselves in the present moment, then definitely would be able to perform, appropriately. All right. And we can, very well say that Bhagavad Gita, because it has a lot of practical applications, it is effective and it is useful of people of, all genders, all races, all religions and all cultures, because humans face similar kind of problems. So all the chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they are, covering day-to-day hassles, which Arjuna was facing. We all face certain similar kinds of conflicts in our day-to-day lives. So what exactly Bhagavad Gita teaches? In a nutshell way, I'm trying to tell what is my inference, because it is beyond one's capacity to talk about Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell way. So I'm just trying to tell what is my understanding, and probably this in a nutshell way, the students would, get little interested and to go and read the Bhagavad Gita. So basically, Bhagavad Gita is a discourse between Arjuna and Krishna. It teaches us three things. What are these three things? The first is theory, and the second is practice, and the third is self-realization. So theory, what is theory, practice, and self-realization? Theory of the Bhagavad Gita. What does, what is the gist, what is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita? How can we practice? There are 700 shlokas. How can we practice this, verses? And then after understanding theory and practice, how can we get into the self-realization? I hope I am able to, make things little bit clear, that the understanding of three things. What are these? Theory, practice, and self-realization may lead an individual to cope with the stressors more effectively. There are stressors which are going to come, undoubtedly. We cannot, control the external factors, but whatever is in our control is to, stay in the state of mindfulness, because whenever there are stressors, we either think about the consequences, what are going to happen in the future, or we also kept on thinking about what all had happened, and we, stay in that, time zone. Although the requirement is to be in the present and to take an appropriate action. So the understanding of theory, practice, and self-realization, if it is, there, then it will definitely help us to cope with the stressors more effectively. Okay. And then we all know that our lives are stress ridden, be it a stress coming from the occupation or from the relationships or regarding finances or any major or minor stresses we all have to face in every second of our lives. So basically, in such situations, Bhagavad Gita is a key to all worries and anxieties, as Gita has a practical and real life applications. If we read all the chapters, so then we'll come to know that all the chapters, they are talking about the hassles which we all have to face in day-to-day lives. So in a nutshell way, I can tell that Bhagavad Gita to the students, because the seniors are sitting, so they definitely would be better, in understanding all these things. But I'm just telling about all those who are, have not read it, or probably they are the youngsters, they still have to read it. So there are 700 shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, which provide a definitive goal or guide to the science of self-realization. And this Bhagavad Gita is having 18 chapters. Now, these 18 chapters are divided into certain kind of yogas. When I say yoga doesn't mean here yoga asanas, which we sometimes forget what is the meaning of yoga. Yoga is yog, means union, means addition. What are we trying to talk about here when we say that all the chapters have divided into certain yogas? It is a union of mind and body. Yog means union. What union is required? Union of mind and body, the thought process, and when the thought process are intact, the actions, the behavior would be appropriate. Now, there are, 3 sections. Now, the first section is Karma Yoga. This Karma Yoga consists of first 6 chapters. Chapter number 1 to chapter number 6 is Karma Yoga. And then the second part is Bhakti Yoga. That is the next 6 chapters. That is chapter number 7 to chapter number 12. And the third section is called as Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga consists of chapter number 13 to chapter number 18. This is such an easy way, what I felt, to understand that all the 18 chapters are divided into three sections: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. See, whatever stressors we have, जितने भी हमारे stresses हैं, वो इन सब से related है कर्म योगा. So there is one particular saying which I want to discuss, like since childhood, we all have been listening this particular saying, कि गीता में लिखा है कर्म करो फल की चिंता मत करो. So I was not somehow convinced कि ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि कर्म करो, कर्म की चिंता मत करो. In this Kali Yuga, I mean, this is very, what I can say, stressful. But this is not the correct meaning. The correct interpretation, when I, read it number of times, then I, realized that Karma Yoga means that appropriate karma has to be done. Whenever we are doing some karmas, we are doing, physical karmas, but they are not mindful karmas. So when we are doing physically anything, but we are doing mindlessly, it is going to get us into any kind of disaster. For example, whenever we are driving, hardly we are driving mindfully. We are thinking about past or the future, and sometimes it may lead to an accident also, right? So I think what is my interpretation is karma, karam karo, chinta nahi karo means we have to do appropriate karma which is required for the present situation. And then definitely success would be there. So karma has to be done mindfully, not mindlessly. This is the interpretation which I found is appropriate, and then the success would be there. Then Karma Yoga teaches us to take appropriate action, whereas when we talk about Bhakti Yoga, so Bhakti Yoga doesn't mean that what kind of, puja practices which we are doing daily, that is okay. But Bhakti Yoga means union with the divine, union with the supernatural power. So it means we have to dissolve our ego, and we have to connect, ourselves as a part of the Supreme, and we have to have divine love for all the people in the universe. If it is there, then half of the problems, rather more than half of the problems, can be dissolved. This is why we have certain problems, because we have our ego. हमारे को किसी ने कुछ बोल दिया, and we are feeling insulted and all, and then we get the feeling of jealousy, then to take revenge. So if we feel the part of the universe, then I think half of the problems would be sorted out. This is again what I interpreted. Then the third is Gyan Yoga. Gyan means knowledge. How knowledge is important here in Bhagavad Gita. Sorry. Sorry for that. So how knowledge is important? Gyan Yoga teaches us about cognitive appraisal. Whatever is the situation, if we are mindful, then we'll be able to interpret the situation appropriately. There is one researcher called as Lazarus and Folkman. They have also noted that the choice of coping strategy depends upon how we appraise the situation. Whatever situation is there, if you are able to infer or interpret the situation mindfully, with knowledge, objectively, not subjectively, then it will be more helpful to be able to cope with the present stressful situation. So in a nutshell, I have told, there are all the chapters are there, but in a nutshell, I have tried to tell that in those 18 chapters, this is a discourse between Lord Krishna with Arjuna regarding Karma Yoga related to our karma, regarding Bhakti Yoga when we have our ego, and regarding knowledge, what kind of appropriate knowledge is there to conquer the world. It is not to conquer the world, it is regarding conquer the self, so that we can stay calm and we can perform appropriately. And then I think success would be there. Success is not only related to materialistic, success is how we can stay more healthy with less, or rather very minimal amount of stress should be there if it has to be. So it needs gradual practices, It is not something that by one reading we are able to understand. I kept on reading and reading, and every time whenever I read, I get another interpretation. This is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. And the interpretation depends upon, each individual can have their own interpretation. And I believe, it is beyond capacity, one's capacity, being, in a state of only I can consider myself very budding in the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. But I have found that if we practice it, if we read scriptures, it is a beautiful, what I can say, and the best kind of psychotherapy which we have. And if we can inculcate this in the schooling, in our daily practices at home, and in our syllabuses, I think it will be a very good form of psychotherapy, and lot many problems can be resolved by our ancient scriptures. So this is all what I wanted to convey. I hope that I have tried whatever is my understanding about Bhagavad Gita, and I'm very thankful to Dr. Deepika and all the senior professors who spared their time and listening me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nidhi. I'm sure the interpretation which you have given of Srimad Bhagavad Gita will be very helpful to all the youngsters. And of course, we all have to read it and interpret it ourselves and practice it along with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Next, I invite our keynote speaker, Dr. Charan Singh, former RBI Chair Professor of Economics, IIM Bangalore, to address the conference on practicing mindful consciousness in economic management. Over to you, Dr. Charan Singh.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me for this conference. I've been listening to all of you since morning. I'm also thankful to Professor Shalini, who introduced me to you and cajoled me and nudged me to say yes, despite a very hectic day today. And I have really benefited from this nudging because I have heard all of you so well. Now, I must mention to you that I'm neither a scholar in spirituality, nor in Gita, nor in economics. Otherwise, by now I would have got a Nobel Prize. So that's a certificate that I'm not. Now, what do I speak on? And speak amongst people who are so knowledgeable like each one of you. So forgive me if I trespass a little, but I thought I'll speak to you today about mindful citizen. And why I want to speak about a mindful citizen is because there's a freebie culture in our country, and everybody wants to get as much as possible free. And I was thinking, is there anything as an economist, as somebody who thinks about spiritual life, is there something for me in this as a mindful citizen? So when I speak about mindful citizen, I should first say what my understanding of a citizen is. Citizen is me. Let me start with my own example. Citizen is you. Citizen is any other person in our country. Citizen is a legal corporated body, like a company. Citizen can be a small community. So as a citizen, what would mindfulness tell us? As an individual, if I have understood spirituality as narrated by most of you since morning, or that I have seen and practiced, it means that I should. You have all spoken about your mind and control of mind, and the session is on mindfulness, then it means I should have a few special qualities. The first quality I should have is compassion, and that comes from Indian civilization, where one is not only compassionate for each other, one is compassionate to the trees, to even the snake and serve them milk, even to animals, sometimes call them a mother, even to plants, sometimes like tulsi, have it in every household, sometimes to birds, because they are the carrier, they're the vehicle of gods. So the ecosystem is that I should be compassionate. And my compassion should not only be restricted to living beings as I see them, but also to things like earth, water, and air, which are the basic elements. I would treat earth as my mother. I would treat water as my father. I would treat air as my guru. So the compassion behavior would encapsulate my thought as to what in the ecosystem I live, I exist, and how does the ecosystem work with me in an interactive manner. The other thing, when I work in this ecosystem and I have compassion, obviously I will be also to a great extent contented. I'll be contented because now I'm seeing the whole ecosystem evolve around me. I can see the trees and the birds. I can see the animals. I can see the earth being dug somewhere and being built somewhere. I can see the water flowing and sometimes being curtailed. I can see the air sometimes enriched by trees and sometimes polluted by me. So I then start thinking that what is this extra that I want? I then start trying to be more contented because I start seeing a bigger picture. Then the traditional things which you have mentioned and which we all know from our literature, that we should be mindful of greed, we should be mindful of anger, mindful of our ego. These are things which are bloated. Now, whatever more I understood is that on this planet, we are all visitors. We are here for a short time. Now, most of the scriptures and understanding that I have is that the universe is very vast, and the universe is as vast as one can imagine, but there is no limit to it. God itself is sometimes called a limitless. And even the best of the telescopes that we have and the satellites that we have shown that this universe is just beyond our imagination. If we go far and wide, we can't measure it. And if we go deep and thorough, we still can't measure it. It's an endless game. And many times I feel as a spirit, I would like to travel across the universe and go from one extreme to the other, enjoying myself. And at other times I feel that the Almighty God probably decided, while you are having a free life and enjoying too much going from one planet to the other or one universe to the other, why don't you for some time get caught on a mud planet and I put you in a mud body and now stick here and learn to be little careful and don't enjoy too much of picnic on my universe. So sometimes I think the fact that we are here on this earth planet, the mud planet, is to give us a lesson, to root us, to also expose us to another side of existence, just not playing around in the universe and enjoying yourself and visiting Mars one day or Saturn the other, and who knows, the other galaxy. So therefore, many times I feel when you are on the journey of spirit, and the spirit is so free, this journey brought to us in a human body has a purpose. The purpose of human body is realization that you can, you are, you were, and you will be the spirit at the end of all. So therefore, this is a finite time when your spirit is caught onto the mud, and this mud has certain characteristics. Now that you have entered this planet Earth, the mud planet, it has lots of gravity. And this gravity would not like you to then get free and move around freely on this in the universe. So therefore, one has to be cautious of my journey, my picnic, my visit, my travel on this mud planet. Now, given this premise that I have in my mind, I'm now going to look at what a mindful citizen should be. My own interpretation, and I can be wrong, but please forgive me for 15 minutes if you have somebody imagining like a movie as to what this mindfulness pertains to him. My feeling is my mindful behavior would say, as an individual, I will divide myself into two, the mind. What is important for my mind? Given the story that I've narrated to you, there was a past and there is a future. Given my own vision and the vision that I have from the scriptures, that the spirit is free and can become as large as the universe and as small as, again, unmeasurable, then as a mind,
I have to be careful what I think and what I feed my mind with thoughts, and where do I spend my time on. I am aware that before I entered the mud planet, I was free before that. And during this course of time, I am stuck to this situation, and I have a future life. And the future life depends on me, either back on the mud planet or back in the universe where I am a free bird. Issue is, why am I here? If I'm here for rich experience, if I'm here for understanding the Almighty, if I'm here having traveled the universe and then come for this experience, now what is that I want to be? Continuing this journey of this mud planet for a few more generations, or move on to the universe once again? So that self-realization of the mind is something, as a mindful person, I would be pursuing. If I look at myself as a body, which is a manifestation, the solid manifestation of my spiritual mind, then I have other calculations to do. Anything and everything that I do will have implications on my body. If I'm very angry, I'm going to release hormones which are going to hurt me sooner or later, will lead to wear and tear in my body and make me suffer. If I'm going to eat excessive food and I'm going to burden my digestive system, it has implications across my body, and then it can also engage and engross and tangle my mind. So as an individual, as a human being, I better be compassionate to what I eat and where do I get my food from. Is it coming from the animal kingdom? Is it coming from the bird's kingdom? Or is it coming from the plant kingdom, which has, to my mind, minimum karma attached to it? If now, given this premise that I had of myself and the mindfulness and the journey that I've traveled and thinking of traveling ahead as a spirit, I would now like to position myself as somebody who's in a community. In the community that I belong to, any activity that I do, will it benefit my community? I can be very aggressive and I can be too passive. Both extremes. Does it serve the purpose? I can be following the rules. I may be breaking all the rules. Does it serve any purpose? When I look at the Indian civilization and look at Lord Rama, extremely obedient of family, of society, of the law. If I look at Lord Krishna, I see Lord Krishna very playful, very happy, sometimes breaking all the norms and laws that were prevailing there. But then the mindfulness permits you something and not everything. And I think it depends. But at the end of the day, my contribution to the society as a mindful person, what is it and does it serve the purpose properly? Let me look at it as an economist. If I'm in a society and I have been given free water and free electricity, and I have a patch of land with me, what should be my behavior? And the government is ready to subsidize the fertilizer that I use on the patch of land. What should be my behavior? Should I excessively use water from the rivers? And I told you right in the beginning, water to me is like a father. Should I use water excessively from the rivers, depriving someone else of the water? If not someone else means you and me, at least the water would have reached the ocean and enriched the ocean with its minerals. Should I use the fertilizer excessively in the soil and kill all the germs and the worms which are there to regenerate the soil? Should I burn my crop and create air pollution? I should be mindful of the society that I am in. And if I do all these things and the water table recedes and the earth becomes barren, and not only the earth becomes barren and the soil becomes bad, the air gets polluted because of the smoke and fire that I have caused. Is that a mindful citizen? Let's move further. A mindful citizen of the country. I love gold, and I can smuggle in gold. I can also take gold from proper channels. But can my country afford gold? Is the balance of payments that I need dollars to pay for essential imports like medicine should be diverted to my ornamental requirement of gold? Similarly, as a citizen who's mindful and is aware of the journey, is compassionate and contented, and has his greed in control, would I can afford, because I'm a rich man, run big expensive cars and use the petrol, which for the rest of the country is difficult to afford because I cannot, or my country cannot, use so much petrol for paying in petrodollars or foreign exchange, whereas I could be using essential items for creating employment in the country by importing good machines from outside. So as a mindful citizen, what should be my behavior? What should be my consideration as a countryman? As a citizen of the planet, on this planet, what should be my behavior? I have the atomic energy with me. Should I use it to put people under fear and make them toe my line of thought? On the planet, I can exploit, because I have the richness. I can exploit anything. I can exploit another country and use that country to enrich my country, as the British did for India for 200 years. So I believe, as a mindful citizen, if that becomes the cornerstone of economics, and that becomes cornerstone of sociology, and that becomes cornerstone of medicine, where each one of us learn and realize and think what my journey is, what brings me here, am I really helpful to my own self in my soul plan? Am I really helpful to my own self in my physical body plan? Am I helpful to the society that I'm in? Now, let me take this further. As a medical doctor, I have a choice to do with my patients, because they're vulnerable and they're just surrendered themselves to me. I have a choice to ensure that they enrich my bank balance, or I have a choice that my bank balance doesn't matter, but this person should join the workforce in a healthy way. I'm a chartered accountant, and as a chartered accountant, it is my duty to find out whether I can enrich myself at the cost of this client, or ensure that this client is sustainable and I leave him, charge him something for my time and energy and my qualifications, my investment on my studies and development, or should I let this client be on its own, survive by just taxing a little bit? So each one of us who are in the society, if we start thinking in terms of a long-term individual plan, where we know that compassion and contentment are the turning points, will the economy become better? Let me give you one or two more illustrations. I have, fortunately, landmass which is rich in oil. Should I use the oil now to exploit the world market? And because the oil prices are rising high, as there is a war going on, should I use this opportunity for selling oil at an exorbitant rate? Now that the two countries are at war, they are not able to produce rice or wheat because all their energies are focused on war. Should a country like India, where the Food Corporation of India has food stocks with it, should it use the wheat stock for exploiting and overcharging and enjoy that premium in the market today? These things have happened in the past. Many countries have played havoc with each other and enriched themselves at the cost of the other. Some of the countries who are leading countries in the world today, like America, blackmailed India with their public law 480 in the food grain program. Nobody can deny that fact. And that is what pushed India into the green revolution that we did. Nobody can also deny the fact that China exploited its exchange rate and became the world industry just by exploiting the exchange rate and dumping their products in the international markets. If we are able successfully to tell the world that mindfulness will enrich themselves in their journey and their experience on this planet, which needs to be thought of as a picnic spot, and as told to us by sages, that this is an opportunity, a rare opportunity, a golden opportunity where you can make the best of it. Will this wisdom not enrich the planet for all of us on a sustainable basis, on a long-term basis? We would inherit the planet the way Indians did 4,000 years ago. And we will exit the planet as Indians would leave after spending 100 years on the planet. We could probably tell the world that that is a model which we have experimented, tested, and also seen over 3,000 to 5,000 years and survived. There's a very good saying by Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak said, these plants, these birds, these animals, these fishes, they don't have money. They don't have gold, but they do everything that, oh man, you does. You eat, they eat. You reproduce, they reproduce. You make love, they make love. You have children, they have children. And you exit, they exit. So is money, is greed, is gold, is dollar, is success to be measured in terms of the cars I drive, the houses I live, and the number of visa stamps I have on my passport? At the end of the day, as Professor Shalini was mentioning, it is happiness that matters. The gross domestic product that we economists have invented, which focuses on materialistic goods, probably is not the yardstick for spiritual, mindful citizens. And I think we have a responsibility from India, citizens of India have a responsibility to tell the rest of the world that there is something more than the Audi car. There is something more than having a palatial house. There is something more than the beautiful beaches of the world. And all that you chase is certainly within you. I suffered from a severe bout of COVID a year back. So the doctors were operating and working on me. And to my surprise, I had time to read on the hospital bed. I realized that the acids which are produced in the chemical factories are produced in my own body. And I was surprised that digestive juices are very lethal. They can digest, burn even a stone. And I was wondering, the whole universe is depicted in my own body. And nobody told us that. And so I think as citizens of this enriched, rich culture, India, we have a very big role to play to the world and tell them, look, what you see in the universe is inside you too. And you are nothing else but a reflection and microcosm of the universe. And instead of spreading your energies outside of your body, can you start please focusing inside of your mind and body? And probably you will get the happiness which you will not need, which not even a psychiatrist can give you, which an antidepressant cannot give you. You will get a happiness which is like bliss, and you will sit years together in samadhi. You will neither need the palatial bungalow of yours, nor would you need special airlines. You could travel in the universe anytime, anywhere, and see it for yourself that bliss belongs to you. You have made all efforts to spoil that bliss. Be yourself, be natural, take a dive within you. I think by doing that, we would make the planet far more livable, far more rich, and once what India was called as the golden sparrow, the planet will become the golden planet. Thank Thank you very much.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Ma'am, you are on mute.
So sorry. Thank you, Dr. Charan Singh. It's always a pleasure to listen to your words of wisdom and how important it is for us to be mindful in executing every action of ours to create a fairer society, to create a better society for our generations to come. Thank you so much, Dr. Charan Singh. Thank you. Now, I invite our chief guest, Dr. Romana M. Siddiqui, Senior Professor and former HOD, Department of Psychology, Aligarh Muslim University, to share her thoughts on mindful consciousness and psychology. Over to you, Dr. Romana.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I really would like to thank Speaking Cube for giving me this opportunity. Let me profess in the beginning that I'm not a practicing clinical psychologist, so I'm new to this field, but due to the opportunity that you have provided me, I have really got ingrained into this field. And so thank you very much for this, to express my gratitude. Now the topic that
You are not audible, ma'am. I think there is some connection issue. Romana, ma'am.
There's some network issue there.
I think so.
You can call Deepika. You can call her and let her know.
Romana, ma'am is rejoining now.
am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Sorry for that glitch, but I think I didn't realize that I got disconnected. So let me start from the beginning that mindfulness, basically, I see it as an attribute of consciousness. And what I find is that since mindfulness has its root in Buddhism, I see both mindfulness and psychology coming together. I mean, there's a convergence of both the Eastern philosophy and the Western philosophy coming together. And it's just like having the best of both the world and trying to move forward. So that's the way I look at it, at psychology of mindfulness. Now, since mindfulness is inherently a state of consciousness, but in psychology, what we have taken consciousness is we have taken it for granted, and especially when we teach Freud, when we teach the process of perception and attention, we do tell and we do define that it is awareness of something. That means when we are surrounded by by so many stimulus, we are just focusing or paying attention only to one of them and trying to disregard the other. But when we are focusing that attention, I was wondering whether we were mindful of what we were looking at, because somewhere in psychology, I did come across a statement which says that attention by definition is very subjective. Your state of mind basically influences what you are seeing in that objective world. So when we are mindful, that means when we are conscious of what our thoughts and process and attitude, then maybe a lot of objectivity is, there's a lot of objectivity in what we are seeing. So, but rather than being judgmental, rather than being judging things or seeing it in from the perspective of the past or from the perspective of a mood, which does colors our perception and attention, when we are mindfulness, we are able to see things in a very clear manner. So it is just a clear awareness of things around us. And not only like the previous speaker was saying, that it's basically when you are aware of your inner thoughts and feelings or sensations, then you can relate to the object as well as to yourself. So when we look at this phenomena, it's just like I am putting myself at a distance and try to observe what is crisscrossing my mind, what are the feelings that I'm going through, because we are living in a world which is in a state of flux. There's so much of uncertainty, where things are changing fast, whether it is family structure, whether it is lifestyle, whether society itself. And as a result, what we find is that we are involved in multiple roles simultaneously. And now each role in which we find ourselves is challenging, and it demands our attention. Now, many a times, if you look at our own lives, we feel that we are just crisscrossing from one role in a very machine-like manner, and we are torn between many worlds simultaneously. So often, like there's one buzzword which I think most of us have used it and we have heard it, that is multitasking. Now, when we are multitasking, we might be emerging as an efficient person where we can manage the nitty-gritties of all the roles which are coming in our way. But as in that process, what we do is we lose touch with ourselves. And one thing which most of you might have come across, or you must have come across in your families, is that when we are going through the day, we rarely have any connections with our bodily processes or bodily sensation. But the moment we rest, whether we are sleeping in the night or whether we have a nap in the afternoon, then we realize the pains and the itching going on in the body, which we were not aware of while we were mindlessly basically going through our day. So that is the difference between doing something in a routine manner and doing it mindfully. So generally what I found was that there are two category of things which we are doing. One, we are doing mindlessly, the other is mindfully. So what we have to do is we have to cultivate that art of mindfulness, or we have to be mindfulness in doing things. So whatever we are doing mindlessly, we can start enjoying those things. Now, even if you look at yourself while you are sitting on the dining table, we might be eating the most tasty dish, but most of us are doing either talking to each other, either we are on a mobile, so we really are able to relate to that taste. So we are just eating because we want to satisfy our hunger, or because it is time to take our lunch or breakfast or dinner. So we are mindlessly just going through that process of eating. Same goes for any task which we are doing. We have just become like a machine who is being programmed to do things in a very efficient manner or in a particular manner. So there's a lot of baggage from the past, which either has conditioned us to do certain things in a particular way, and we, without even giving a thought, we just go through those activity in a very routine manner, as if we are like robots who have been programmed to do things in a particular manner. And depending upon how efficient you are, you might be making errors or not making errors. But then we do manage our lives. But in the process of doing things in a very inactive way, because mindlessness basically is an inactive state of mind where we are over relying on our experiences, and depending upon how we have been trained, what type of experiences we have gone through. So we are drawing a lot of these things from the past. So in a way, it's just like we are caught in the past. Like, I'm not denying that the past is not important, but we should not be anchoring ourselves in the past. We can draw things from the past, but move on. But here what is happening is that because I have learned or have been trained to do certain things in a particular way, I just go in that automatic mode, and we start doing things without even thinking that what impact it is making on me, what impact it is making on others. So we are basically trapped in that perspective which we have been overdoing. And as a result, what happens is that sometimes we see that when we go through that automated mode, we become very insensitive to context. And most of the time we land ourselves in a lot of problem, or we might create tensions for ourselves or others, because it's just like we are predisposed to give our reactions without even thinking of the nuances of the situation or the context. So it's like we are not very sensitive to the context, because we have known how to handle such situation in a particular way, in a particular manner. So when we are going through our lives in a very mindless way, our mind also is it's in an automatic mode. So it's an naturally the mind is not oblivious to what you are doing, but it doesn't pay much attention to the activities or the thoughts or the feelings that you're going through. So when we go through our activities in a mindless way, we basically are rushing through things. So when we complete one thing, we rush to another thing, and we are not paying attention to ourselves basically. Now, since most of us are mindlessly doing things, we are suffering, because it in a way basically disconnects us from ourselves. Whether it is your bodily sensations you are getting disconnected, or whether it is your thought processes which you are not very in sync with. And as a result, sometimes we either brush things aside, especially when we come to stress and anxiety. We might be going through those tensions, we might be experiencing stress, we might be experiencing anxiety. But what we do is we just try to sideline it. And then a time is going to come when things might pile up and we are going to be caught unawares. So if we are mindful of things, we might notice those small things which are disturbing us. And it's just like we might nip it in the bud. But what happens is that when we are going through things in a mindless way, we are suffering without even realizing that we are suffering, because we are not able to see what is right or wrong, or whether we are making any errors in doing our day-to-day activity or carrying on our lives. Now, the problem is that most of the time we think that we know everything, because when we go into that automated mode, or when we go into the default mode, we think because we have learned this technique, so it is the best or the right technique. So I don't have to think about it, whether it is working for me or not, whether we are making any error or not. So we really doubt it. Now, another way of looking at it is that when we are doing things without applying a brain, so to say, when we are doing things in that mindless manner, in a way we are trying to avoid that fear which is lurking somewhere, that we might make mistakes. Because somewhere, unfortunately, in this particular society, we are expected to be perfect in whatever we are doing, because mistakes somewhere is a signal that we are weak. But let me tell you, mistakes or setbacks or failures are nothing but blessings in disguise sometimes. because they literally push us or make us do certain things or discover a certain potentials inside us, which we never had any clue to it. So if we do make mistakes and we are aware of the type of mistakes that we are making, then if we are mindful of those mistakes, we can sometimes come out of it as a better and a stronger person. Because what mindfulness does is, mindfulness is in a very active state of mind, and it basically helps us to distinguish between what is right now and what has been in the present or the future. So it enables us to be in the moment and try to appreciate what is going on and how you are doing things. So it's just like the difference which we distinguish between hearing and listening. So we might be listening to somebody, we might be hearing to somebody, but are we really paying attention to what that person is doing, saying to us? So are we really listening to what that person is saying? Because we sometimes either are not ready to listen because we are in the habit of talking, and for us, we just pay attention to the terms which are being used. We are not paying attention to the feelings behind those terms. So what happens is that we are not in the position to distinguish what's going on and what really is between what we in psychology say between the lines. So when we are in that state of mindfulness, that means when we are in the present moment and we're trying to watch our thoughts and actions, then it enables us to see things in a different perspective, rather than seeing it only through the prism through which we have been doing things. So when you notice when you are mindful, you may notice new things, and you will be able to contextualize it in, rather than looking it by removing it from the context. So it's not a decontextualized understanding of your feeling and emotions, but you are in sync with the situations around you. Now, when I'm saying that you may be able to see things in a new perspective, I'm not saying that you are not going to follow rules and routines, but they may guide you, they may help you to do things. But when you are in the you are attentive and you are aware of what's taking place in the present, it basically helps you to acknowledge things in a very non-judgmental manner. Now, another thing which one thing which we have noted in the present circumstances is that before even understanding, before even thinking of what is going on, we make our judgment. So we are very prejudiced about certain things, and we have these preconceived notions. And through those prisms, we try to understand even our own selves and others also. So when we are becoming mindful, we will be able to appreciate what's going on. Rather, it's just like a person, observer, standing at a distance and watching the scene that is going on. And so it might enable you to be non-judgmental. Sometimes it's advisable to just appreciate things as it is rather than judging them and evaluating them. Now, if you see how our consciousness basically as a process it works, when especially through mindfulness, if we are trying to shift our consciousness, then we might be able to do those things which we were not able to do, because when we are doing things in a routine manner, then it saps our creativity. It basically also saps our optimism and vitality. Now, a key mechanism which works in mindfulness, as I've understood, is that it's basically something to deal with the perceptual shift in the mode of responding and relating to both your sensory and cognitive domain. Now, when there is a perceptual shift, we see that there are certain aspects in the process of attention which is being affected, because rather than just merely focusing attention or being aware of what is in front of us, attention basically enables us to see things in a very amazed manner. It gives, when we see things in a new perspective, we are amazed at what is going around us. So there's an element of wonder when we become mindfulness. Then it also leads to gratitude, because when we see things in a new perspective and when we understand the phenomena, then we might be more grateful towards it rather than just being complaining or just being judging it in a very negative way or in a very cliched manner. And when you try to focus on new things, it may give you that element of novelty, and it also gives you that hope that you might be able to come up with something new. And it enables you to also appreciate things. Like when we shift the consciousness towards from mindlessness to mindfulness, then what we found that it promotes intoxicity, that we are not being very toxic in whatever we are seeing. So because when we start appreciating things, we love things, we find pleasure in it, and it promotes love rather than we are engaged in only hating other people or criticizing other people or judging other people and ourselves also. Because most of the time we are not only critical about others, we are also very critical about ourselves. So when there is a perceptual shift, it leads to greater self-awareness. And you as an individual become aware of your cognition, you become aware of what is going through your mind, you also become aware of your feelings. So when you are becoming aware of your feelings, it also helps you to self-regulate your emotions, because most of the time the way we are reacting, the way we are interacting with people, the type of responses that we are giving, that also lands us in problem. So in a way, when we become mindful, it improves our psychosocial coping strategies. And a lot of researches has been done on stress management through mindfulness, and what they have found is that it basically modifies your immune system. So the neuroendocrine system and the biological pathway in your body, they also get affected in a positive manner. Because when we get into the stress mode, there is a certain circuit in the brain which gets activated. So if we practice mindfulness and if we come to know that, okay, now we are getting into the stress experience, because this is one thing which we teach our students, that if you really understand the process of stress, understand the concept of stress and how it is related to psychological reactions and physiological reactions, we do get indicators from our body that now you are getting into the stress mode. So it's a circuit which is getting activated in your brain. So if you are mindful and you know that now I'm getting disturbed by certain demands in my life, then you can break that circuit. So through mindfulness, basically, you can alter that biological pathway or that neuronal pathway in your brain. And most of the time, like when those people who have practiced mindfulness, they have shown that they did feel relaxed even when they were experiencing stress, because it enabled them to manage and cope with that stress in a very relaxed manner. Now what happens is, when you are basically in a stressful situation, it transfers the locus of control from external conditions to your internal metacognitive processes. So now what happens is that sometimes we are not able to alter the external world, which may be disorganized, which may be more have more determinants, which is creating those stressful experiences. So it is better to control our inner world and organize our inner world. So when we are mindful, we are aware of our inner world, because so many years of within psychology, what I have found or what I have understood is that rarely we try to connect with ourselves. We are more connected with the outside world, so we feel that we know a lot about other people. But we live 24/7 with ourselves, but we have no clue about ourselves, and our mechanisms are either the bodily processes or the psychological processes that are undergoing in us. because we really pay attention to them and we are not very much connected to ourselves. So we really don't understand why we give certain reactions or why do we behave in a particular manner. Now, when we focus that attention on ourselves, then it helps us to connect ourselves with our psychological processes as well as our physiological processes. So mindfulness not only helps us to understand these processes, but it also leads to greater spiritual awareness. And this broadens our perspectives because it helps us to reevaluate our life's priorities. Now, apart from these benefits, there are other benefits, and I'm sure others may have discussed it, but I'll go through them very quickly because I think I'm approaching my time limit. So some of the benefits of mindfulness, which has been empirically proved, is that it helps in reducing the stress, because once we are mindful and we are aware of our emotional experiences, it basically helps to regulate and reduce the stress and anxiety, and it helps to increase the positive emotions. And it also decreases your emotional reactivity, because when we are mindful of our own attitudes and our own feelings, that it helps us to control our emotional reactions rather than triggering our emotions on every small things. We do channelize our emotions in accordance to the situation. So basically, through practicing mindfulness, we increase our positive affects or positive emotions, and it helps us to decrease our negative emotions. And evidences have also been there that it improves to focus much efficiently, and it improves your ability to focus on complex as well as simple tasks, and improves your working memory. And it also helps you to lead a better life, in the sense that you may be having a naturally good relationship, but generally what we find is that sometimes due to lack of communication or due to miscommunications, there are certain strains in the relationship. So when we are mindful, it increases the relationship satisfaction, because we try to reduce the emotional impact, especially when there are conflicts between people, which is but natural that we will be having certain tiffs and conflicts between people. So when we are mindful, it helps to improve on your relationship. Then it also helps to improve fear modulation, and your metacognition ability also gets enhanced. And finally, I think what is the most important thing which gets affected through mindfulness is it enhances your well-being, because it helps you to appreciate small things, and it's very much related to happiness. So if that is the ultimate goal of life, that one's well-being should be enhanced, and one should lead a satisfied life. So if we have so many things and still we are depressed and anxious and sad, then I think the purpose is defeated, because whatever we are earning, whatever we are achieving, it is always in relation to our own well-being and satisfaction. So if we become mindful, and if Speaking Cube has been in this process of holding so many workshops and conferences, where I'm sure they are also have training modules where they are helping people to become mindful. If people become mindful, then we will be becoming a more happy person, and we will be contributing to a happy society. So with that, I would like to end.
Thank you, Dr. Romana. Very rightly said that mindfulness and psychology go hand in hand. We must apply our brains in performing every action of ours. And once we inculcate the habit of doing things mindfully, we reduce or lessen our own sufferings. Now, I hand over the mic to Dr. Deepika Chamoli, founder and director, Speaking Cube, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Meetu ma'am, for handing over the forum. And now we have come to an end of this inaugural ceremony. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver this vote of thanks for the inaugural ceremony to all the dignitaries and participants present here. I would like to thank our patron, Dr. Neil Cobran, Founder President, Academy of Mindfulness, and my PhD co-guide, who has been a guidance throughout and a pillar of support in all the positive endeavors. I would like to extend my heartfelt thank to Dr. Charan Singh, the keynote speaker, who has supported Speaking Cube even with the extremely busy schedule. He's an extremely busy personality, but then he has taken out time to be present here and to share the word of wisdom. And his word of wisdom means a lot. I place on record our gratitude to Professor Dr. Rumana Siddiqui, former HOD, Department of Psychology, Aligarh Muslim University, who's a chief guest for the ceremony, for her support to this positive intent. I would like to thank my advisors, Dr. Colonel Chetan Sharda, for his unending support, even with his extremely pressing duties in ICU. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Dr. Rita Kumar, my PhD guide and advisor of Speaking Cube, for her unending guidance and love towards Speaking Cube activities. I extend my heartfelt thank to Dr. Shalini Sharma, advisor for the conference, Dean Economics and Policy Studies, MIT World Peace University, for her valuable suggestions and playing a big role for collaborating with MIT World Peace University for this conference. I would like to extend my heartfelt thank to Professor Dr. Abha Singh, my PhD co-guide, who has been a big support all the time in every positive endeavor. I would like to extend my heartfelt thank to Dr. Nidhi Verma, a good friend of mine and a very spiritual person, who was a guest speaker and who spared time even with the busy schedule, even in her busy schedule, and have shared the word of wisdoms. Last but not the least, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Speaking Cube team, Mrs. Gurmeet Sharda, and Ms. Drishti Singh, and to all the participants present over here who have made this event a success. And finally, I would like to thank the positive intent of all of us, which have brought all of us together right now, right here on this platform, because of which we'll be able to spread a bit of positivity globally. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your support and your presence.
Thank you, Deepika.
Thank you, ma'am.
On behalf of Speaking Cube, I would like to thank each one who's present here for sparing your valuable time. Now it's a time to fill up our stomachs. I wish you a healthy and hearty lunch as a meal of fruits and vegetables, and also a very healthy meal of thought, which surely will make us mindful throughout. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the paper presenters can join the link at 2. The schedule has been uploaded, shared with you on email, and also on the WhatsApp group. So you can join the presentation link at 2. Now we all can leave for the lunch, and the paper presenters can join the paper presentation link at 2.
Thank you.